Hello, everybody. David Shuster here. It was meant to be a spectacle of strength. President Donald Trump's long-promised military parade, complete with soldiers, tanks, and patriotic pomp. But what Washington witnessed was something altogether different. A lurching, lackluster procession playing to empty sidewalks, soldiers who marched out of sync, and a commander-in-chief who at times seemed barely awake. This wasn't a show of strength, it was a feeble vanity project collapsing under the weight of its own absurdity.
But it was far from the type of demonstration that I think that the President of the United States anticipated. Look, this isn't China, this isn't North Korea. You can't force citizens to show up for an event like this, let alone on a hot Saturday with storms looming overhead and serious security protocol to deal with.
Meanwhile, across the country, millions of Americans turned out in force for No King's Day, a people-powered rebuke to the very authoritarianism Donald Trump's parade tried to glorify.
He just doesn't care about veterans. All he cares about is himself and money.
From Philadelphia to Los Angeles, St. Paul, Minnesota to Dallas, Americans gathered in nearly 2,000 cities and towns.
I love the flag, but I'm flying it upside down today just because we are in distress.
Let's be clear, Donald Trump has always been obsessed with military parades ever since attending Bastille Day in France back in 2017. He has longed for his own moment of chest-thumping pageantry. But America, despite all of its flaws, doesn't do coronations. We don't parade tanks down Pennsylvania Avenue like a banana republic dictator. We don't need to, because true patriotism is about principles, not parades. Yet there was Donald Trump on Saturday, front and center on a makeshift viewing stand like a sedated guest of honor, as military units, hastily assembled and poorly rehearsed, walked down Pennsylvania Avenue. Organizers had touted as a historic show of American pride. But pride was hard to spot among many of the troops. As the headline says, Trump sent humiliating message by awkward way soldiers marched in D.C. parade. Many of the soldiers seemed unprepared. This footage quickly went viral, and countless veterans noted that troops could march in lockstep if they wanted to. But never mind the soldiers, there were wide swaths of open grass and sparse crowds even directly along the parade route. Talk about embarrassing. And indeed, this entire parade wasn't patriotism, it was propaganda without an audience. Military cosplay for a convicted felon who was made a mockery of the U.S. presidency. Trump's disappointment seemed clear in the unusually brief message he posted on Truth Social. What a great parade. Thank you, Army. That was it, other than a few videos that Donald Trump added. There are now several published reports that Donald Trump was disappointed by the parade and angry. His birthday celebration got eclipsed by the No King's Day protests. More on that in a moment. Trump's parade flop could have been predicted, of course, because once again, Donald Trump used public service members, soldiers, as props for his own fragile ego, dragging our armed forces into a crumbling cult of personality that is losing its grip on reality and eroding public support. And while Donald Trump was busy playing emperor, America was busy saying no thanks and showing what real democracy looks like. In over 2,000 cities, millions of people poured into the streets for No King's Day, a grassroots movement that began as a reaction to Trump's increasingly monarchic rhetoric and has grown into a full-blown national celebration of democracy, equality, and resistance. No tanks, no brass, just marching feet, loud voices, and a clear message. America doesn't crown kings.
We want to make sure that we can fight against the authoritarianism that's happening as we speak.
Across the United States, the atmosphere was electric, peaceful, resolute, and deeply American. Again, compare that to the footage of Trump slowly slumping forward in his chair as soldiers tripped over a poorly timed cadence. Trump looked tired, not just physically, but ideologically. Out of sync with the moment, out of sync with the country.
His communications director, Stephen Chung, this morning put out a social media post in which he said there were 250,000 people that came out for this parade. That's just not accurate. It's not even close to accurate. And so that's the way that this White House would like to present it.
The contrast between the faltering parade and the booming protests couldn't have been more clear. One marched for Trump's image. The other took to the streets for America's soul. Trump and his shrinking base want a country where might makes right, where institutions bend to the will of one man and where dissent is punished. No King's Day stands for the exact opposite, that no one is above the law, that democracy is not a spectacle but a daily struggle, and that true patriotism means holding power accountable, not fawning over it in gold-plated stadiums. And here's the kicker. Even many conservatives are starting to wake up. Veterans groups that once held their noses and voted for Trump are beginning to voice discontent. Active duty service members are expressing growing discomfort with being dragged into political stunts. And independent voters, according to public polls, are leaving Trump in droves. The emperor has no crowd, and no amount of brass bands or fireworks can fix that. Donald Trump may want Americans to look at tanks and look at him and salute, but millions of Americans this weekend chose to look at each other and march, not in formation, but in solidarity. By the way, Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren, Democrat, recently ripped Donald Trump's Treasury Secretary to his face.
Will this bill increase or decrease the deficit?
They're varying scoring on that, Senator Warren.
You're the Secretary of the Treasury, so I'm asking you, what is your view? Will this bill increase or decrease the deficit?
It is my view that over the 10-year window, it will decrease.
You know, do you have anybody who agrees with you on this?
Yes, ma'am.
Let me ask my question.
Okay.
Every credible independent expert agrees that Trump and the Republicans' big, beautiful bill would add trillions of dollars to the national debt and would not even come close to paying for itself. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, the Penn-Wharton budget model, and the Yale Budget Lab all agree on this, and they're looking at 10-year windows. Thank you.
First of all, a huge portion of this goes to family-owned businesses that are pass-through entities that are below that level, Senator, and I am sure you share my goals of Main Street prosperity.
You know, I'm glad to do tax cuts for people of modest means. The question I'm asking is, why does the deficit not matter to you when we're talking about knocking 16 million people off their health care?
First of all, that figure is overstated by 5.1 million. That is an amount not attributable to provisions in this bill.
So you think it's okay just to knock 10 million people off their health care?
First of all, let's set that straight. Work requirements account for 8 million of CBO's claim number. Again, we're creating an economy that promotes and rewards.
It's clear, Secretary Bessent, that you don't want to answer the question.
No, Senator, I am answering it.
No, you're not.
And what I want is for Medicaid to be used for mothers and children as it was meant, not for 1.4 million illegal aliens, not for able-bodied people.
Medicaid is not used for people who are not documented. Mr. Chairman, I just want to say here, the part that troubles me the most is that the Secretary is deeply worried about the deficit and is willing to knock 16 million, or as he says, merely 11 million people off their health care. Matters so much, but it doesn't matter so much if you're cutting taxes for billionaires. Then it's okay to run up a big deficit. I think that's wrong.
Check out that video at the link below. It generated a lot of comments on YouTube. One of the most popular is from Sandy, who wrote, Senator Warren demonstrates strength, intelligence, and courage. She's an incredible role model. Indeed. I look forward to reading your comments about Donald Trump's flop of a military parade and the contrast with the massive No King's Day protests. I'm David Shuster. Thanks for joining us.